on YouTube. Just a minute.
That is a photograph by Raghu Rai.
Yes, and I saw the credits.
He really is a great photographer. It took 2 minutes to do it. Our entire session was 2 minutes. I met him at JLF, and he said, "Can I take a picture?" I said, "Sure, go ahead." That was it.
Yeah. So we are now live, sir, on YouTube.
Okay, how nice.
And okay.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank
on
you
the
so much,
Hyderabad Literary Festival.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to HLF Online. This evening, we have great pleasure, and it's an honor to welcome Lord Meghnad Desai to the Hyderabad Literary Festival. We are honored, sir, by your presence at Hyderabad, at least virtually. And we are delighted that HLF is going to be the first festival where this book is going to be discussed. And we also have the great pleasure of launching this book because the book hasn't had a formal launch in India.
Yeah.
So on my own behalf and on behalf of my colleagues, Ajay Gandhi, Amita Desai, and Kinera Murthy, I welcome all our audience to this evening. And just one small announcement before we start. Please do remember that we will take up questions. So feel free to type your questions in the chat box, and we'll request Lord Desai to answer some of them at the end of the session. And our next session, ladies and gentlemen, will be on December 11th. And I have great pleasure in announcing that our next session will also be with a parliamentarian. And this time it is going to be an Indian parliamentarian. And it is Dr. Shashi Tharoor, who will be speaking with us at Hyderabad Literary Festival on December 11th at 7 p.m. as usual. So, Lord Desai, it's indeed an honor for us to be hosting you and formally launching your book. And may I request you to hold up the book for beautifully produced. And this has the cover page. The picture is taken by the maestro.
Yes. I can use it like a mask.
Yeah, from behind a mask.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, this beautiful picture is taken by Raghu Rai, the master photographer. And one more wonderful portrait of Lord Desai is by the famous cartoonist R.K. Lakshman, which Lord Desai considers one of his priceless possessions. So, Lord Desai, welcome to Hyderabad. Welcome to Hyderabad Literary Festival. And we are delighted to have you with us this evening, sir.
I've been to Hyderabad more than once. My stepson's wife comes from Hyderabad, and I was there for the marriage. A lovely time going from palace to palace for our feasts. Right, lovely place.
Thank you so much, sir. So, Lord Desai, I have read this book from cover to cover, and what a delightful read it is. Initially, I was apprehensive because this is, after all, the autobiography of an economist. But my apprehensions were soon dissolved because it's such a lovely read, and it flows so smoothly from chapter to chapter. And ladies and gentlemen, the book Rebellious Lord is divided into 6 chapters, and it covers Lord Desai's life from his childhood in Baroda, which is, of course, now Vadodara, and then his schooling and college education in Bombay, now Mumbai, and then to his PhD at Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania, and then at Berkeley, and then it moves to England. And the chapter following that, which is called Settling Down, the fifth chapter, if I remember right, is the longest chapter in the entire book. And the last chapter, the sixth chapter, talks about his global life, covering different places and different countries. So in 6 chapters, Lord Desai not only talks about his own life, but because he's a man of many parts, when he narrates the story of his own life, we get great insights into much larger issues, issues of politics, issues of economics, issues of academic life, and the cultural differences between India, USA, and UK, and much more. So we are once again delighted, sir, to have you with us this evening. And since you follow the chapterization in a particular sequence, I would also like to begin in that same sequence. And of the 6 chapters, my favorite is, of course, the very first chapter, your
Okay.
childhood, your childhood, because I was really, impressed by the loving way in which you evoked your childhood in Baroda. um, Not a luxurious life, not a life of plenty, and yet there was a lot of joy, there was a lot of cheerfulness. And so I would like to begin by asking you, how much of that childhood has had an effect on your personality, sir?
I think very, very profoundly, I would say, well, two things. First of all, in childhood, there was, as I described, not just my own family, but lots of families were my family. And it was very easy and a beautiful little town to get about in. Uh, Mind you, I was studying most of the time, but it was very, very pleasant. And we were all sort of equally middle class. So there was not any great contrast between different relations. And I guess I formed my character, such as it is, uh, in Baroda. But then what really happens later on, and we'll come to that later on, that I become separated from the family background and the caste background. While most Indian boys grow up with the uncles and aunts and people protecting them while they're growing up, there's always someone to go to. I had no one to go to. At the age of 21, I became on my own.
Hmm.
And so there is a contrast between life in India and then life in US, which is sort of transitory. And then, of course, settling down in UK, which you say as is the longest chapter.
Yes, and
I
the
wanted
two.
to sort of stop with my getting the peerage, getting into the House of Lords, and then write a second volume. But I think people thought, this is long enough. Just finish it off in 100,000 words, and we'll be all right. So the last chapter is a little bit rapid travel through the world.
Right, right. And what really interested me in your first chapter, which you call In My Native State, was small little details which left a deep impression on you. For example, you mentioned that uh, even today, you hate to see food being wasted, food
Yeah.
on plate being wasted. And again, a little small incident, like you say that even today, you enjoy the taste of licking the spoon after eating yogurt.
Yes, indeed. Exactly.
So those small
Absolutely.
details
Yeah.
really add to the charm of that entire chapter. And I think two incidents from your childhood stand out in that chapter. One is rather unpleasant incident where your maternal uncle locked you up in a dark bathroom, and
Yeah.
your parents did not either protest or come to your rescue. And then you say that that's the day you lost faith in your parents' protection.
Yeah. Well, obviously this is a grown-up man's thinking about what might have happened then. But I have never forgotten it. You see, this is the amazing thing, that I can still vividly recall that room and that evening. So I decided to put it in, which is the only unpleasant incident in my life, almost. And I thought, because I have to be honest with myself, and I think it was formative. It was a very formative event in my life. And that kind of, maybe I'm exaggerating, I'm not a psychologist, but from my point of view, that made me think of being self-sufficient. And I became self-sufficient.
But yeah, you also say that that's the day when you decided that you will not cultivate any father figures anymore.
That's
And
right.
you also say that in a way you became kind of a rebel against all figures of authority.
That's right. That is quite right. Quite right. And has stayed so. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
getting old has not cured me of being rebellious.
So I was wondering whether, yeah, but I was thinking whether did you also see the country India also as a kind of father figure, and so in a way you also lost your faith in India kind of protecting you. And
no, you see, I didn't lose interest in India. I made a separation.
Is that somehow has that influenced you?
No, I have kept up, throughout my life, I kept up writing about India, and talking about India. Maybe much more after my second marriage to an Indian woman. But throughout, I had, whenever I could, I went back to India for the summer twice, from London. And then I've written extensively about India, Indian history, Indian culture, and so on. I still go on writing. So no, I have this. I literally have these three countries in my imagination as my country: UK, USA, and India. And I write about all of them with a bit of a feeling of possession. I don't write about America as a foreigner. I write America as somebody. In the latest election, I have been taking interest because I've followed American elections very closely ever since. Even before I went to America, but but certainly since I've been to America, very, very much. And of course, I'm part of British politics, and I write about Indian politics. The Americans have a very interesting word called kibitz. Have you heard the word kibitz?
Yeah.
Yes, kibitzing is when you're not playing the game, but you go on standing behind and saying you should have done that and not that. I kibitz about politics in India and America, and I practice politics in a very small way in England.
Right. And the second incident that you highlight from your childhood is, your habit of stuttering, and then how you overcame that stuttering, and then started speaking extempore,
That's right.
which is something that remained with you.
Absolutely. Now, that is a great advantage, because even up to this day, when I get up in the House of Lords to speak, the Hansard people who have to take notes always send an attendant around to everybody else. Can we have your notes, please? And they know now that I have no notes. I've just stood up and made it all up. And that helps me very much, because I can speak on what has been spoken just before me. I can react to other people's speech and make my own speech. And that has proved to be a very advantageous thing, much more effective in speech making than a prepared speech making. Mind you, if you don't make a prepared speech, in school debates and college debates, I lost, always lost, because I was too extempore and nobody understood why I was extempore. But there we are. You can't have everything in life.
And talking about your move to Bombay, I suppose you were too young to be affected by it, but did it really affect you? Uh, being shifted from Baroda to Bombay.
Oh, absolutely. I think absolutely. In a sense, uh, as the youngest person in the family, I benefited the most and suffered the least. But there's no doubt that the quality of life in Baroda was much higher than the quality of life in Bombay. But eventually, the cosmopolitan atmosphere of Bombay and the fact that to go anywhere you had to travel quite a lot. So I became more urbanized. You see, Baroda, after all, is a small town. A little small town where you could walk everywhere. Not now, got much bigger.
Yeah.
In Mumbai, as I say, early on, I was going from Warsaw, which is way out, into Dadar every morning, taking 1 hour from door to door to go to my school. And that is an amazing education in urban living. It's not pleasant, but it's a great education. But then, I guess by the time I was about 15, 16, I began to enjoy Bombay.
And from that period, I think one incident uh, is kind of something that remained with you, which is it's always we always remember or perhaps don't remember good teachers influencing you,
Yeah,
but you always remember a bad teacher
bad
uh,
teacher.
putting you off from mathematics, and you
That's right.
said that remained a kind of a lifelong block for you. And so that is something that remained with you, and you tried consciously to overcome that block.
Yeah.
And
I think it took me about, I would say it took me 15 years to overcome that. I did not expect I would have to do it, but when I go to America, mathematics became part of economics, and I had to just kind of go and do it, which I did, but it was not easy.
Yeah, you also say that you had no physics and no chemistry, and
I know,
and
absolutely. I was
and
very badly. My school was terrible. As I say, it wasn't third rate; it was much worse than that.
And then you joined Ruya College, and there's a one line which I really was impressed by, where you said the choice of Ruya College was absolutely taken without any thinking about why not St. Xavier's or why not
Yeah,
Elphinstone. Just take whatever comes.
yeah. I mean, it was it was never thought. So it's a family thing that basically education is done at home. And the type of college doesn't matter. And I guess basically, uh, my parents never worried too much about which college that their children went to. I mean, now people are much more conscious in India. What's the school to go to. And when I was once invited to the Delhi public school as a prize giver. And so my first thing I said was that I want to congratulate all those people who have not won a prize, because they also have achieved something. Don't think that if you're not the first, you failed in your life, kind of thing, because I was never first. I was second or third, and my Indian, at least my mother's feeling, I clearly had not succeeded, but I was all right. So I think uh, the schools were not as competitive, and colleges were also, yes, Elphinstone was a better college without a doubt, but didn't feel that much a difference. Uh, I was just surprised that we never even thought about me going to St. Xavier's or anything like that. Your
Because
next guest, Shashi Tharoor, did go to
yeah.
St. Xavier's.
Yeah. No, that really showed me the difference between, in a way, those times and today's time, where probably the aspirations are too high, the pressure to succeed is too much. Whereas what you write about is something like take life as it comes.
Yeah.
That kind of contentment, if I can use that word. You know.
See, well, also, in a sense, the expectation of my family, as I said, mainly rested on my older brother. He was the oldest son, and he had all the responsibility. I was relatively being youngest. They thought, oh, he'll do whatever he'll do, and well, they would have liked me to get first grade and so on. But ultimately, I was going to be IAS. That if you didn't do science or engineering, you ended up in IAS. If you couldn't do anything else, and so I was quite relaxed.
Well, things haven't changed too much. Things haven't changed too much because you say how your family wanted you to do science and you wanted to do Sanskrit,
Exactly.
and finally you ended up in economics.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And then in economics also, I stayed in economics and didn't go into IAS or anything like that. I did it my way. It's like the Frank Sinatra story. I did it my way, and I didn't listen to anybody else. And I did not suffer from it. Let's put it that way.
And you say towards the end of that chapter of your life in Bombay, that when you boarded the ship, and you said this is the end of this chapter, and there was no regret and no nostalgia, and you in a way thought that, or more or less knew that you were never going to come back to India.
Yeah.
Isn't that a very remarkable kind of feeling for a young man leaving for the first time?
I know. Yes, but I'm literally I'm describing literally what was happening. I was remarkably self-conscious. And I said, okay, that's the end of that. I remember saying to myself, that's the end of that. Now, it turned out to be true, which is why I can say it. It may not have turned out to be true, or I may have accepted one of the many offers I got when I came back to India and become director of somewhere. But I just thought, no, I'm not going to live here. And maybe it was that bathroom in which I was locked up. But that's the way it ended up, and it has ended up rather well. So it was not a bad choice not to come back.
But also the timing of your leaving, because in a way the India of that time was still full of hopes, full of aspirations,
Absolutely. Oh,
full of
absolutely.
opportunities, and so it was something unusual to.
I can tell you that we were full of hope. We thought India will really go very far, or more or less it had established itself very well. We used to have all these foreign leaders come by. I remember standing in a street where Ho Chi Minh came to India and Kwame Nkrumah came. I didn't really physically see Khrushchev and Bulganin, but there were always there was big honor for India of these people coming, as we thought, and it looked like India was going places. And then I missed out the 60s and 70s, the difficult 60s and 70s.
Correct. Yeah.
When India really was, of course, I was observing it, studying it, reporting on it, but I missed out that. And I re-emerged in India in early 90s when Rati Rao and Manmohan Singh do that trick.
Yeah. And then from Bombay, you shift to the US and you complete your PhD in 2 years at UPenn.
Well, you were talking to a man who entered secondary school in age of 7. No, you see, it was one of the happiest accidents of my life. And I worked with one of the cleverest men in economics who got the Nobel Prize. And all because I got this fellowship. And as I said, I applied only to one university. I took immense risk. Just applied to one university and nowhere else. And I just got this weekly tuition research supervision from this man. And he admired the fact that I was learning very fast, things I knew nothing. I was at 0 in econometrics when I started, and I got to 100 very fast. And he just realized, so without explicitly saying it, he just made me go through the hoops, and I went through the hoops, and within a year, 15 months, I'd done my PhD while doing my courses. And that was actually the shortest time anybody took to do an economics PhD at Penn.
And you were, risk taking also. I mean, in a way, connected me to your choice of Ruya College without thinking of other colleges. And you went to UPenn without thinking of why not Harvard, why not some other university. Yeah, that's a remarkable kind of I don't know what to say.
Risk taking, arrogance. I don't know. No, it's all turned out right. All the risks I've taken have sort of turned out right, which is lucky.
Yeah, and you say that there has always been an element of luck in your life.
I wanted to call my autobiography "Could Do Better," but I was discouraged. He said nobody in India would understand such a title. So do something else. So then we settled on rebellious alone.
Yeah. That's a schoolmaster's line, isn't it? Could do better. No matter, even if you get 99.9,
exactly.
Schoolmaster would still say could do better.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned economics and econometrics and your struggle with mathematics and how it took 15 years for you to overcome that block. But you also mentioned your sense of excitement when you heard Amartya Sen talk about economics. And although it was technical, he was concentrating more on political economy rather than on the technical aspects of economics, right? So, would you say that where and when did you think that this kind of mathification of economics is something that you need to get away from and concentrate or focus more on political economy and the social factors, etc.?
No, you see, I would say that it was good to have been put through the mathematics crunch because far too many people do political economy without mathematics. It's better to do it with. You don't mix the two, but one informs the other. It's one of those things which very subtle. Everybody says, why can't you do economics without mathematics? Because it saves time. Let me tell you. It clarifies your mind, it puts you to test. And then when you do political economy, you are much better. And of course, because you've done political economy, you will choose topics in technical economics which are relevant.
Okay.
So it is a kind of a symbiotic relationship. If you look at what Amartya Sen has done in his career, he's always chosen very interesting. In the technical aspects of what's called social choice theory about politics and voting and all that. It's immensely difficult. But he did it because he came to it with a political philosophy, political angle. And that's very useful. Of course, a lot of people do very, very technical, dry stuff in the same field. But if you have a political passion, you do stuff. So even when I did econometrics and so on, very soon I was doing Marxian economics, thinking on poverty, things like that. So I was very much informed by political economy into doing my econometrics. So I never did purely technical stuff, nor did I purely non-mathematical stuff. It was kind of a interplay, and that is an advantage.
Yeah, and you say that although your PhD was from Penn, it was actually at Berkeley that your political views and your, in a way, your political self, and that.
You see, the Penn, I had no time.
Yes.
Penn, I was just working and working and working.
Yeah.
And at that time, Pennsylvania, the East Coast was not very adventurous. The West Coast was adventurous, and by that time also, as I say, the civil rights campaign had heated up, and the Vietnam War, and although I had a immigrant visa and I shouldn't have done what I was doing, I did it. I took a risk by going on demonstrations and things like that because I felt very strongly about it. Because had I been deported, I would put in Mexico. I wouldn't have been sent back to India. But it was a risk worth taking. And again, I gained a lot from being actively radical for the rest of my life.
And how much of those student movements and sit-ins, how much of that really influenced your future political career?
Well, my decision to join the Labour Party, 1971, was after the student troubles had ended and got nowhere. Had no solid achievement to show for it. I decided that I got to get serious. If I'm going to do, if I'm at all interested in changing the world I live in, I have to join a political party and work at political party, and that is why I joined in 71. And what that part of my book shows how busy I was. I had a family of small children growing up. I had my career and I had my political life, but somehow managed.
And I'm sure it's more than managed. But I was also thinking, if for a person of your temperament, would America would it have suited you better than UK, except for the fact that you were afraid that you would be drafted into war duty, and therefore you decided to leave USA?
One way I did love America very much, and I would have liked to have settled in America. It is a great, great society. And at that time when I was being offered jobs, the department professors were telling me, don't worry, we will tell our senator to get you off. Apparently you can do this, senator. I said, but what if he says no? I can't take a bet on that. Then they said, but people like you would never be sent out on the field. You will be doing intelligence work or something to do with computers and things like that. But I didn't actually like the war. I thought I'd be fighting on the wrong side because I was for the Vietnamese, not for the Americans. And I thought this is a 1,000,000 to 1 risk. Because if they put a gun in my hand, I'll be dead in 10 minutes. so I did. But I'll tell you one thing about this. I would not have been a senator. I'm a member of the House of Lords. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I have got to certain kind of level in British politics, which I would not have got. I might have, who knows, but I don't think I would have. I would have been richer.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that chapter, I was struck by this, your comment on Indian Marxists. And I just read here where you say many Indian Marxists are really Leninists with a deep suspicion of the market and a great faith in state control of the economy. Even among the communists, a few people ever read Marxist economics. And then, you go to say that this made me an anomaly in Indian eyes. In India, people like their political beliefs neatly tied up into distinct bundles of left and right with no crossing over. I had no intention of conforming to the norm.
That's right. Yes. No, in a sense, I have always maintained, even in uh, respect of other countries, that very few people read Marx, and they believe things about Marx which Marx did not say. And it is basically Lenin who made Marx into a vibrant political guru and movement. And I have actually read Das Capital more than once, which very, very few people have done. And I've written about it. And then when the globalization came back and the Soviet Union collapsed, I wrote a book called Marx's Revenge, which are not described in the book. It is Marx's Revenge on Lenin. You said capitalism would come to an end, you silly fool. I was right, it would go on. And nobody can believe this. Nobody believes that Marx was much more positive about further development in capitalism. Yes, it would go one day, but it was not going to be in his lifetime. And this is what I like about Marx. And my book, Marx's Revenge, has become a favorite in America of right-wing futurists. Right-wing futurists said, this is a great book, and they write me letters because, it is entirely my book. That's very much just my book, and nobody else's book.
Yeah. And also when you moved to the UK, we are talking about your fourth chapter. Your first impression of the London School of Economics wasn't very flattering.
No.
You said that it is almost like secondary school in Bombay.
Exactly.
In the middle of a very busy street, and particularly coming from these vast campuses of the US.
Absolutely. There was not a blade of green grass anywhere. And buildings cheek by jowl to each other, and the corridors and bridges from one building to another, and traffic going through the campus. And there's no campus, but it's just a road. Now it is much better developed and landscaped and so on. Actually, since I left, it has got very good landscaping. But the vibrancy of the life in those crowded buildings was fantastic. It was basic, I guess I should have said more like it was like my Ruya College, more than like a polytechnic. But I was just disappointed. It was just a busy place to work, and while it was the way it was, students never left till very late. They came in the morning and they stayed till late. Professors may go home, but students stayed.
In this part, what really I kind of identified with was the academic life. Although I really don't understand any economics, the academic life that you describe in this part was something that I am familiar with, because although my subject is not economics, I'm very familiar with the academic life in a university. And also I was interested in your comment that there was a time when in London School of Economics and in other universities in England, people were very unhappy with this vulgar American culture of publish and perish, publish or perish. And so there was a kind of resistance to this kind of evaluations and rankings, etc.
Yeah.
It
was. I very much lived through that period. You see, the dominant culture was Oxford and Cambridge. And Oxford and Cambridge culture was, if you were brilliant at 21, you were made a fellow. Then you didn't have to do any work at all. If you did nothing, you were still a fellow. Of course, the people who rose to the top were also fellows, but they took with them every great economist or physicist was accompanied by 6 or 7 who had done nothing. Whereas the American culture is, no matter where you are, no matter how high up you are, you have to go on working. You're as good as your next article. And that is very, very helpful, I can tell you. Hard work, but very helpful.
Yeah, but do you think this this pressure to quantify everything in terms of figures, in terms of statistics, in terms of something that can be evaluated and quantified, do you think that is something that that has in a way ruined the academic atmosphere of institutions? Because that is now very rampant in India too.
Yeah, I think, it is good for most of us. And it never, ever hurts the really outstanding people. One of the Nobel Prize winners, who was an economist, a man called Coase, Ronald Coase. The best paper he wrote was as an undergraduate. He wrote 3 papers in his life and got the Nobel Prize. And in America, there are American economists who have written 100 articles and are waiting for the Nobel Prize. And, so there are ways of distinguishing between quality and quantity at some stage. But basically, what it is, in a way, it is a decline in the social status of the academic. Once upon a time, you were an aristocracy, and nobody minded whether you did a lot of work or not. You were there. Now we're kind of middle class. We're like anybody else. Our productivity has to be measured. And yes, it is not the best of all lives, but it's a very pleasant life to be an academic. I can do what I like. I can get up in the morning and think, what shall I work on today? And that's as I said almost on the last page, to be paid to read and write is a great privilege, because I like reading and writing, and I'm being paid for what I like. Doing.
In this chapter, there is one particular passage that I was really struck by, and I want you to comment on this. This is where you compare the 3 societies that you are very familiar with, the US, England, and India, and you talk about the cultural differences. And you, of course, highlight English as spoken in India is different from that in the US and also from the UK. This is not only a matter of pronunciation or accents, but of nuances, and about what words mean, and then the sense of humor, etc. But what I would like you to tell us is what kind of cultural differences do you really see? Not just about language, not just about the sense of humor, but culturally, how are these 3 societies different from each other?
Well, I guess America was, for me, the culturally the most attractive place. Because if you were, I've never been racially discriminated against in America. I had no problem in America, as you can read in my book. So then America is a very nice egalitarian place. And great opportunity. Everybody is sort of treated equally, and that's straightforward. When I got to England, it was still a bit status-ridden place, very snobby place. It has improved immensely over the time I have been there. Indeed, it was beginning to crack. The whole elitist stuff was beginning to crack with the Beatles and the Stones and all that sort of stuff. And now it has become much more like America, but not quite. It is much more, but also in a sense, it has become racially more diverse. And without the other terrible discrimination than America. I mean, the black person in UK doesn't get his vote denied, doesn't suffer the terrible stuff that goes on in America. And to that extent, you have to say that the British have a capacity for peaceful change, which is quite remarkable. I mean, you have three people of Indian origin, or at least the parents are of Indian origin, in the British cabinet, occupying three very important portfolios: finance, home office, and business. This is quite remarkable for a country in which just 30 years ago there was nobody of another race in politics, more or less. And so I think that one has to say that this old world country has tremendous capacity for innovation. Obviously, many more things need to be corrected. I'm not satisfied. But whereas America is a land of opportunities for most people, and I guess I should say I don't know where I would have ended up in America if I had stayed. I might have not become an academic. I might have gone into industry or something like that. That it is there. You could move all over the country. You could you could move across professions. Whereas in England, I've just stayed in London for 55 years. I have not moved anywhere else, and that is a peculiar part of England.
Yeah, you say that.
But
sorry,
it's a very small country.
Yeah, yeah. You also say that although you were the only non-white member in the in the general management committee of the constituency, you never felt that you were different. And there were differences, but these differences were ideological rather than racial.
Yeah, I think also because class matters much more in England than in America. I was middle class. Basically, middle class and middle class. As I said, they were really worried that I was with the Fabians as a middle class, and I was not a trade union. I was not a brother. I was I was a Fabian. No, I have to say, I only think about it formally because sometimes people make a lot of fuss about this. I was at a meeting which I've not actually put in this thing, just about the time when Tony Blair became prime minister, and we were in some sort of gathering, and the Minorities Commission people, friends of mine, were thinking of doing work on extent of discrimination. And so this friend of mine, she's a good journalist, I won't name her. So we must, each of these people in this room must describe their experience of suffering discrimination. So as usual, I was the first off the crank. I said, but I've never suffered any discrimination. She said, that can't be true. I said, I know what is true about my life. He says, it's objectively, I said, objectively nothing. I have never, because I was always a middle class person. I arrived in England with a middle class job in my pocket, and I lived in a middle class place, and my friends were all middle class. So I think that kind of difference, people do forget that it is not just race, it's class as well. And the poor whites suffer as much deprivation as the poor blacks do, and one must never forget that. That idea, being in the Labour Party, I always have. I always have that. That there are poor white people and poor black people.
In that particular part, you say something, and I would like you to, because this struck me as something very remarkable, where you say where India is not one country, where you say, I wanted to explore the idea that India was a collection of many regional economies and nationalisms, which thus had specific histories as well as sharing a general national history. And you said that for this view, you were criticized by the left, which wanted to see India as one country and one class, etc. But I was thinking that this idea of a monolithic India is today more up
Absolutely.
upheld by the right
Absolutely. No,
rather
no,
than the left.
no, I quite agree with you.
Hmm.
And at that time, the dominant ideology was left, so
Hmm.
I had to fight them. I again and again I say, and nobody likes me saying it, that India is a civilization. It is not a nation.
Hmm.
India is like Europe.
Hmm.
You see, China is a nation and a civilization.
Hmm.
It's always had a single government, more or
Hmm.
less. They have a single dominant people, the Han people, a
Hmm.
single language, more or less.
Hmm.
And China has been like that for 3,000 years.
Hmm.
India, when what people think of India
Hmm.
is North India.
Hmm.
It's basically the Doab,
Hmm.
the Avadi culture. The Avadi culture was very secular among the elite.
Hmm.
So Pandit Nehru thought all India was like that. And Yogi Adityanath also is an Avadi, and he thinks this is like that. The Muslims are the enemy, and so nobody remembers South India at all,
Hmm.
and nobody thinks of the Northeast.
Hmm.
I mean, think about how old the Northeast is a part of India.
Yeah.
Assam, especially Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura,
Correct.
Nagaland, and uh, and I can tell you, everybody sort of bristles when I say this thing. I've written about it, that
Hmm.
ultimately India is still becoming a nation.
Hmm.
It is not actually there yet. And say, if you take regional history, uh, the Bengalis don't like the Marathas because Shivaji used to invade Bengal. Now, if you say that in Mumbai, you'll be beaten up. Or I remember someone who's a distinguished South Indian politician say, I wouldn't name him. Uh, he said, the thing about Indians is we never ever conquered other countries in empire. He doesn't know the history of Tamil Nadu when Rajaraja, a Chola king, was,
Hmm.
was, was up to Singapore and Malaysia,
Hmm.
had a huge naval empire. People just don't know the history of India. People don't know that Muslims came to South
Hmm.
India peacefully. They're not
Yeah.
as invaders. So I think there are a lot of simplifications. I
Hmm.
think basically I call it a Delhi Sultanate history of India. Both the left and the right has a
Yeah.
Delhi Sultanate history of India. The
Yeah.
only
You
question is
you take you
what is
take
secular or not. Sorry.
you take digs at the Delhi elite, and where you think that for every one person who actually has power, there are lots of other people who think or they delude themselves, of being in power. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
But
uh,
no country has 28 languages.
hmm,
No single nation. The European Union just about has
yeah,
it. And we are the Indian Union.
hmm.
We're
Yeah.
not the country.
The eighth schedule lists 22, and a recent survey showed that there are 780.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, when I was a boy, I remember talking about some relative who got married, same caste, my subcaste, my jati, but she was from Saurashtra.
Hmm.
And the thing was, they had to go all the way to Saurashtra to find a girl for this man. What's wrong with him? I mean, this is within Gujarat, within the same language, but that is
Yeah.
Saurashtra, Kathiawad.
Hmm.
Why would
Yeah.
we go there? My father would
Hmm.
say when eating curry, I
Hmm.
don't like this surti curry. I like our curry. Sort of
Hmm.
thing. So there's a lot of parochialism, which is
Yes.
sometimes quite fun to
Hmm.
enjoy. But India is too big a country to be a nation.
Hmm. And since you mentioned Nehru's idea of India, I also wanted you to respond to this very unusual book that you wrote, combining Nehru's idea of India
Oh,
and,
Dilip
and,
Kumar.
and Dilip Kumar and Dilip Kumar's films. And in a
Yeah,
way, you say that Dilip Kumar, in a way, and his films, in a way,
all
represent the
yeah.
the Nehruvian idea of India.
Absolutely. No, I very much, that was a passion. Dilip Padgaonkar, who was a friend of mine who used to be editor of Times of India, unfortunately died quite young. Here I used to talk about it because he was also a film fan. And I just, that is a book I like very much because that is a different way of writing about history and films than most people manage. And Dilip Kumar was very helpful. So, and he's a very charming person. So I just took 10 of his films done in the 1950s, late 40s, early through the 50s, and described basically how the secular, whatever, India, and of course they were friends. I mean, he was very much a Nehru uh, uh, sort of. Uh, Nehru was an icon for him, and Nehru liked him very much.
I think we have time for just a couple of questions. Let me, mention two things. One, you seem to have emerged as some kind of a soothsayer, predicting the results of elections, and you predicted Manmohan becoming the prime minister 2 days or
Yeah,
3 days in advance, and then you saw Modi as a future prime minister
yeah,
of India, and
yeah.
UPA, winning comfortably in 2009,
That's
and it goes on. And you also predicted Trump's win, Trump's victory.
indeed I did. Yes.
So is this some kind of a intuition, or is it based on political analysis?
I think it is a lot of political analysis and risk taking. You
Yeah,
know,
but yeah, I was
that
thinking
little
more
jump, that little
correct.
intuitive jump is mine.
Mm,
I
mm,
mean, I'm very proud of uh, the Manmohan Singh thing, as I described in the book,
mm, mm,
because I put together experiences I had, and
mm,
I made the connection,
mm.
and I proved to be right. You see, the thing about prophecy is you only have to be right once, and then you're a prophet forever. But but
Mm,
also in Trump,
mm,
uh, I was I was the first person, even here at this end, to take Trump seriously way back in March 2016, before he got elected, because he had made some statement about economics, about how debt was a good thing. I thought this one is very interesting. I have to follow him because he's very unusual, very unorthodox views. And so I started studying him. And then when I observed him in debates and so on, he was the most television professional person who's ever become president. He's complete television professional because he
mm,
knew when asked a question, Hillary Clinton used to give a long answer because she
mm.
wanted to show off how many things she had done. He gave the answer which was short and very controversial. So people forgot what Hillary Clinton had said. Everybody remembered the short sentence. And the news channels later on were talking about his answer, not her answer. So I
Yeah,
thought this man really knows how to get publicity.
yeah.
Uh,
He knows how to manage TRPs for the television
absolutely,
channels.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Even better than Arnab Goswami.
And also, the other question that I had was, your the prizes that you have accepted. You have accepted the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman from a BJP government, a Padma Bhushan from a Congress government, and also, for example, accepting peerage.
Yeah.
So what kind of responses or reactions did you get? I mean, because I see that people are not comfortable either on the right or the left with your choices.
I was, as I say in my book, with the Pravasi Bharatiya Puraskar, I certainly get a call. sitting in my House of Lords desk. He says, would you accept a prize if the government gave it to you? I said, of course I would. Because they thought, like the Indians think, oh, but he's left wing. Will he make a publicity for it? Oh, they offered me prize, but I turned it down because I am against. I said, any government elected by the people of India, I will accept a prize from. Simple, very simple idea. These guys were elected by India, and I've been in politics long enough, and my party has lost enough elections. I don't believe in the nonsense. Oh, the people were misled, or they're stupid to have voted for the opposition. People are not stupid. People are never stupid. They know who to vote for. Trust the people. If they have elected a BJP government, that is their choice. Don't so everybody's wrong and I'm right and I've got 10 seats and they've got 250 seats, but I'm right. No, sir. That's not a democracy. Uh, and for the periods, I had absolutely no doubt that I was serving the Labour Party's cause by going into the House of Lords. I was a parliamentarian.
Sir, now we'll take questions from the audience. The first question that I see is from Arun, who says that to what extent while writing, you felt parts of your writing is going to hurt people you know or you may know well. So did you change any parts not to offend people?
No, you see, I hope I have not offended many people, but I haven't particularly, actually, I could write a book which would be 4 times as long as what I have written if I wrote about every incident of my life. And some of the people who probably hurt me are gone. And so they wouldn't be hurt. But no, I basically put in what I remember and what people might like to read about. It may be my story, but people have to read it, So, no, I have not consciously hidden anything. But by and large, I don't mind, I don't like being rude to people.
Yeah.
All my life, I've tried, even when I've opposed people, to maintain good relations.
In fact, I was surprised by the complete lack of any acrimony or kind of disappointment or whatever in your academic description of your academic life.
I mean, it's how you. Okay, I could have said, "Oh, they did not promote me fast enough," right? But doesn't matter. I did get a professorship, and I've enjoyed it, so it's not bad. Have you gone? Is the Zoom finished? Hello? Hello, Vijay? Vijay, are you gone? Vijay? Is the Zoom over? End? I don't know. I conclude that I have gone. I take it is over because my Zoom frame is Meghnad Desai. My Zoom frame
Yeah, sorry.
is frozen. Oh, no, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
you're
yeah.
back.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I'm sorry. There was a internet thing, so I'm using my mobile data.
Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was wondering whether it ended or not.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was saying that
You're back.
you always had a good word about everybody, including your colleagues and your
Ah,
research
I
scholars and the administrators. And there's a complete absence of any rivalries, political jealousies,
I know
except I think two
I've
incidents
had a
that you
good time.
mentioned.
What
Yeah,
it is, I think, uh,
yeah.
at the end of the day, I have ended with a positive number rather than a negative number, and I could complain if
Hmm,
that was my nature, but it's not my nature.
hmm,
You know, if you
yeah.
don't succeed, that's your problem. If you succeed, that's thanks to other people as well. That's a
Hmm.
very simple way
And
to think of.
yeah,
And
one
anyway,
other question
I
is
have done well. I have done well.
yeah. Hmm.
Why complain?
The other question is from Wahab, who says, as an economist, what are your views on demonetization that happened in India?
Yeah, I actually advocated demonetization. I'm sorry to say. In 2004, I
Hmm,
gave a lecture at Reserve Bank of India, and one of the question
hmm,
was about demonetization. And as young economists, we had thought a lot about black money and how to get rid of black money, why was black money distorting the economy, and so on. And as part of that, I had thought about this that only way to get rid of black money is to make it very expensive to hold money. And the only way to
hmm,
make it expensive is to demonetize. Periodically, every 5 years or so, just demonetize. Where I think the 2016 experiment went wrong was the new currency was not ready on day one. The way I had sort of
hmm,
planned it or hypothesized it, on day one, the new currency would be with the banks. And so there will be no
hmm,
hitch in people exchanging one for one. And you said each person can only do up to a certain extent, say 1 crore. Beyond that 1 crore, if your money is either destroyed or you have to buy my bonds, government bonds,
hmm,
which will pay you zero
hmm.
interest. And so I thought about all. And I wrote about demonetization in my Indian Express column. People can go and read it. And I very much followed it through that I've been, unlike many other distinguished economists, I have been always of the view that yes, there was a hitch in the first 6 weeks, but after that, the effect was a very small drop in growth rate, but not the disaster everybody says it was.
Hmm. But since nearly 90% of the money came back, do you think it really succeeded? Did it have
But
the results that it was?
that basically said that the holders were clever. They did not suffer very much.
Hmm,
You see, what really happened, I think full history has not been written. But for example,
hmm,
banks sold all the foreign exchange holdings they had. Airline tickets, people hoarded
hmm,
all sorts of things. They converted cash into airline tickets, into
hmm,
foreign currency, into all sorts of things. So basically,
hmm,
nobody was left with a hoard of cash that they could not spend. So yes, all the money came back, but all the money came back with some people only getting half for 1,000 rupee note, or paying double for
hmm.
something. So yes, it all came back because it had to come back. The only other thing would have been burnt. Um,
Yeah.
and or it may still be around in people's homes. So I don't think you measured the usefulness of the thing by how much came back or how much did not come back. You measured it by the fact that you made the transition, And you increase the people under income tax, because a lot of people were caught out in income tax, and the number of income taxpayers went up. And I think what it showed to me was that the next time you plan demonetization, and I think they should have every 5 years, but plan it better. The story is that all the three government printing presses are working to print the new currency, but that was not enough. So I said to the relevant person, why didn't you go to a foreign press? They didn't think about it. And they ran out of paper as well, so they made smaller notes. I tell you. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, one more question from Maria Shima is that since you are good at predictions, do you predict winning the Nobel Prize in economics for yourself?
The expression chance would be a good thing. Well, let me put it this way. In the first week of October, first only the science prizes are announced. It's in the beginning of the next week that the last prize announced is the economics prize. And there are about 5,000 economists who are quite sure that they should keep the telephone absolutely charged up in case, the authorities from Sweden call. Well, wish me luck, but the probability of that event is very, very, very small. It doesn't mean I won't get it.
Is that because...
Sorry?
Yeah. Well, you never know. You never know because,
Exactly.
as you say on the last page of your book, that luck played its role in your entire career. But more I was thinking, is that because, as you said in your book, that you tried to do many things in economics rather than specialize in just one thing?
Yeah. But I enjoyed myself.
Could that also be... yeah.
Now you see, the Nobel Prize is
I'm sure,
given,
we are also...
Well, if it was a voting, I could get all the Indian votes. But then, now I think, let's say,
certainly.
it would be good if it were good if it happened. But who knows? Wish me luck.
All the best, sir. And we hope that, we will see not just Lord Meghnad Desai, but also the Nobel laureate Meghnad Desai soon enough.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for being with us this evening. And lovely to have this conversation with you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we end this evening's HLF Online. And once again, on my own behalf and on behalf of my colleagues, Ajay Gandhi, Amita Desai, and Kinnara Murthy, I sincerely thank Lord Meghnad Desai for taking his time out and speaking to us this evening at the Hyderabad Literary Festival. And we are not only delighted, but honored that we were able to launch his book in India and have this conversation with him. So thank you once again, Lord Desai, and we look forward to you once again.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you again in 15 days' time with another edition of HLF Online. And this will be on December 11th, Friday, as usual at 7 p.m. And our speaker would be Dr. Shashi Tharoor on his new book, The Battle of Belonging. So we will see you on 11th December. And thank you very much and have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.